Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg, editor-in-chief of All Israel News, and I'm here with former Israeli ambassador to the United States, former deputy foreign minister of Israel, Danny Ayalon, who also serves as one of the founding members of the All Israel News Advisory Board. Ambassador Ayalon, thank you so much for joining us on this first week of interviews for All Israel News.
Great. Always great to be with you.
Thank you very much. So we've discussed a number of issues: media bias against Israel and forces of peace in this region. We've discussed the business climate in this new UAE-Israeli peace deal, the opportunities, the excitement, really, that you're hearing both in the Israeli business and financial community and in the UAE, and your desire to get there soon because UAE business people are inviting you. And we've also talked a little bit about how Palestinians could benefit from this new environment. I want to take a moment today on our third and final interview for this week and ask you about the last big offer that Israel made to the Palestinian leadership. It was back in 2008. Then the prime minister was Ehud Olmert. I believe you were just finished your term as Israeli ambassador in Washington. I think you were back, and you weren't. It was still the next year, I believe, that you were going to be elected into the Knesset. So this was somewhat of an interim, but you had been involved advising a whole series of Israeli prime ministers and foreign ministers. And so could you just take a moment and sketch out for our readers and viewers, what was this dramatic offer? Many say it's the most generous that any Israeli prime minister had offered. What did Olmert actually offer Palestinian chairman Mahmoud Abbas?
Well, Joel, I would say the short answer is Prime Minister Olmert offered everything that Mahmoud Abbas demanded. That means he really offered him 100% of his demands, and really nothing to be gained by Israel. For instance, 100% of all the territory of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, and wherever Israeli communities would stay there, you don't want to uproot them, they would be compensated by equal amount of land from Israel proper.
So it was known by the diplomats as land swaps. Israel would keep this community and that city and that settlement, but over here they would get additional land that's currently inside the 67 lines.
Exactly. So here Israel gives up 100% of the amount of territory. This is, it's not just going halfway towards them, going all the way towards them. Jerusalem. Dividing Jerusalem, which is also very, very hard, but dividing Jerusalem and giving the Palestinians their part of Jerusalem so they can decide what to do with it, create their own.
And specifically, let's be clear, Olmert was offering the entire Muslim quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. He was also offering, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, the entire Christian quarter of the old city, as well as operational control of what Jewish people and Christians would call the Temple Mount, what Arab Muslims would call Haram al-Sharif, the site of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Do I have that right? That each of those sections were going to be Palestinian?
You have it absolutely right. Giving up, the most sacred place on earth for Jews and Christians, giving it for the control of the Palestinians. Now, Muslims, as you know, they have their two best or two most sacred cities, holy cities in Mecca and Medina. This is for the Sunnis and also Shiites. For the Shiites, you have Najaf and Qom in Iraq and Iran. Jerusalem is only number 3 in their list of holy cities. And you know what? Islam has never mixed political centers with spiritual centers. If you look at anywhere in the Arab and Muslim world, there is a total separation. For instance, Saudi Arabia, the political center, the capital is Riyadh, and not Medina or Mecca. Same thing is with Qom and Najaf. And here in Jerusalem, it's the only place that the Palestinians are changing for their own interests and making a holy place also a capital.
So it's interesting also all of East Jerusalem, or most of East Jerusalem, that would include the Mount of Olives, the Garden of Gethsemane, many of the Christian holy sites that are important would have been Palestinian. In just a minute or so, in our short amount of time today, what was Mahmoud Abbas's answer to this extraordinary offer by the Israeli government?
Just as before, no, no, no. And he doesn't have to say it, doesn't have to spell it. He just walked out and never returned an answer. And this was his answer. No answer is a no answer.
It's hard to understand, because I think if that offer had been made today in the Trump plan, first of all, I'm not sure that I know for certain, and I know you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu and his center-right coalition would never have accepted that. It would strike me that offer by Olmert, obviously it wasn't. You said it was 100%. Obviously, there are Palestinian ambitions that want to take everything. But in terms of telling Israel, you have to go back to the 1967 lines. We want East Jerusalem as a capital. We want control of part of the old city. It's fascinating that you're saying that basically everything that was asked for that was legitimately, theoretically possible by a center-left government, in this case Olmert, not by a center-right government, was offered, and Mahmoud Abbas effectively said no, even though he literally didn't give an answer. It's hard to understand. I think most people, most Christians around the world and others don't know all this history, but it makes it difficult to understand what the Palestinian leadership really does want if they were offered this 12 years ago and could have a fully functioning Palestinian state today with many, if not all, of their demands.
Paul, if I may just interject one thing.
Sure.
It's no all over, just like Arafat did in Camp David in 2000. But I can go back to 1937. 1937, the first partition plan was introduced, taking the land, Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, aka Palestine by the Romans, it was called, and partition it for the Jews.
1947, the November UN deal.
The first thing was 37.
You're talking about the Peel Commission.
1937, yes. And then it was repeated in 1947. And then in 1967, we offered it. And then, of course, you had 2000 in Camp David and 2008 in Annapolis, as you mentioned, by Olmert. And they said no, no, no. And thinking, again, with an all or nothing approach, that they would gain over time. But history shows they just lose over time. Mm-hmm. And of course, the Olmert plan is no longer on the table because it could have risked us both politically and nationally.
Thank you for summarizing it, because I think a diplomat who was involved so much as you were, trying to help us understand what was offered. I think that has led to some of these Arab states, like the United Arab Emirates, saying, listen, we still support the Palestinian cause. We still support the people. We're willing to invest in helping them create jobs and create a society and a state. But we can't wait forever to make peace with Israel. It's an extraordinary moment. There's more to come. And I really appreciate your insights, not only for me, but for the All Israel News readers and viewers. Thank you so much, Ambassador Ayalon.
Thank you, Joe.
From Jerusalem, I'm Joel Rosenberg.